Hello, composers. How are you doing?
Hi,
Hey. Hi.
What's up? What's up? What are we talking about today?
summer festivals.
Summer
Summer
festivals.
festivals.
This is kind of like a season finale or of sorts because we're taking a break after this too. So it seems kind of proper in a way that we ended with what's coming during the summer. We're taking a summer break. You have some commitments, family, work. We'll have stuff to do. We'll probably be back by August or September or before.
Yeah.
Well, we'll just appear or disappear. We're not disappearing. We'll be back. But this is the season finale of sorts. So let's go with a bang. Who wants to start? Who wants to start talking about summer festivals? What summer festival should we talk
I
about?
mean, maybe we should just maybe we can just go through and we can each, go through our a journey or our experience with, summer festivals.
Oh no.
Which ones we've attended, you know, I can start. I guess. The very first summer festival I guess I ever went to was in high school. Before my senior year of high school, I went to the Boston University Tanglewood Institute as a composer, um, and it was. That was really transformative to me because I had never met another young composer, so that was like the big thing. Um,
Where
and
did you
so
where
I never.
where did you study composition?
This was like in high school.
But you were studying
Oh,
composition
I
in
studied. Oh
Illinois.
yeah, I was. I studied in Illinois in the Chicago suburbs. Mostly like with my piano teacher who was a composer privately,
Oh,
and
okay.
I had never met.
So you were
I
not
didn't
in a
know no
music
one at my
school.
high school.
You were not in a music school then.
I was in a music school, but there was no composition program at that music school. There was lots of very, very talented performers. Many of them are like professional performers now, but there was not a composition program. And no one I knew really composed. I was like the only one. So that was like a big thing. And Das House was much more, I got to experience a lot more structure classes because they taught like oral scales, which I had never learned in any kind of structured way. And I got, it compared to like the stuff we do now, the program was way conservative. It was run by, Boston University, and then they had a lot of people who were from like Juilliard there. We got to work with a lot of the composers, the Tanglewood composers, for the bigger festival. With and I learned a lot of new music that I hadn't. Tamer new music, like it was probably like things like Boulez, John Adams.
John
I think I
Adams.
learned a little bit of, I think I remember Augusta Reed Thomas being there. I remember, I think maybe Elliott Carter. Elliott Carter was actually there in real life. So like, some kind of big names, but, nothing too extreme, but compared to somebody who's mostly just studied, classical and romantic music, and it was very different from music I knew. So that was it was and it was a lot of writing and a lot of getting your music played because it was like 6 or 8 weeks, something like that, and you had a piece to write every week, and you got the pieces read every single week. So I came out with a collection of recordings and pieces, and those pieces I ended up using to like submit to colleges and stuff like that. So I went
And
to
this was
Northwestern
Boston University Tanglewood. What? What was this
Institute. Yeah,
festival?
they call it like Booty for short. It's Boston University Tanglewood Institute,
I would.
Berkshires.
Okay.
Um, and then in
That
college,
specifically
I
for
didn't go to
teenagers.
Yeah, so they do it for like high school students, and they kind of do it in junction with like, so the regular Tanglewood Institute is more for mostly some college, mostly graduate students, and then they have, this is like kind of like their, baby institute underneath. And you get to listen to the Boston Symphony summers there, and you get to see the Boston Symphony like every single night. So that was kind of cool. And then in Northwestern, I didn't do a lot of festivals in Northwestern because a lot of times I needed to make money and not spend money over the summer. But I did do the Sick Puppy, which I think, Juan, you did as well. We're not at the same time, but
Yeah.
I did Sick Puppy in Boston.
Sick Puppy.
I did it actually
Summer Institute for Contemporary Performance, I believe it is.
Practice. Yeah, so it's different is that they actually... the performance is the main thing, and the composers were kind of like a tag on, So that's different, because usually a lot of them, the composers are the main thing, and the performers are there to serve the performers, and it kind of was almost the opposite. But it was a really cool program. It's just like a week. I think it's a week. Was it a week or 2 weeks?
Yeah.
I can't remember. I think it's a week.
I think it's...
But they had one composer. I remember Joe Kondo was one of the senior composers, and I cannot remember who the other one was.
When I was there, it was Tristan Mural.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I think it's cool to meet him. Joe Kondo was actually very cool. Actually, to be honest, he was very, a lot of things he said, I don't know if I agree with them or not, but he said a lot of things that have stuck with me. So that's, and a lot of things that I think about, actually, quite a lot.
And this was in Boston, but I don't remember if it was in Boston or it was
in New England Conservatory.
In New England Conservatory.
It was New England Conservatory, yeah. It was New England Conservatory of Music. It was run by a pianist, Steve Jury.
You have a very good memory.
And it was great. It was great. They had, you just met a lot of performers, a lot of composers. At least I had a really good experience with it. I had a string quartet one time, and then I had a solo cello piece, and I had great performances of my pieces. And it was, you got to hear a lot of music. Like, there was a lot of concerts. It was, I think, sort of similar to June in Buffalo, except that there was only like one senior composer.
But there were two main differences, I would say, because the senior composer was only one, and the performers were all of our same age, like undergrads or grad students.
Oh yeah,
now
that's
that
true.
I remember, most of them, like probably here a handful that were instructors or professors, but none of them were that old. Oh, it was a nice experience overall for me.
Yeah, it was a fun experience. Yes, I did that actually 2 times. And then at Buffalo, my first summer I did Sloth Solitude, which was one of Steve Takasugi and Haya Zernowin's summer programs. They don't do any of their summer programs anymore, but they were really incredible. I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks. And they did them so there was like no, they don't do any of them. They did all of them kind of the same from what I've heard from other, where they had a very kind of luxurious lifestyle played out. So like Sloth Solitude, you were in a castle. We had like a really good cook that only like used like farm to table ingredients from a certain small radius around the castle.
Okay, I'm getting hungry.
It was really, not your typical summer. Usually your summer camp experiences aren't like quite like that, but it was like, I can't remember one.
probably one or two, but the food wasn't that good,
Yeah.
or most of them we had to eat
Oh no,
outside.
none of them
I don't
are.
know. No.
This one was they're different, and they did a lot of like presentation of your own. They had just three.
Was
They,
this in
they
this
usually
was in
invite one
Germany,
other
right?
person to be in faculty with them. It was in
This was
Germany, yeah,
Germany.
kind of in the suburbs off of Stuttgart, Germany. So kind of very southwest Germany. No, yeah, southwest Germany. So yeah, and they had a resident ensemble. I think it was an ensemble surplus, and they had
Surplus.
they invited another composer, Alman Wollman, who I'd never heard before, but he was the other faculty, and so we took lessons. So I got like 2 or 3 lessons with each of them. So it was kind of different. Like you actually got a couple lessons. We did master. We like presented each other our work in master classes, and then we had a lot of actually free time. It wasn't jam packed. There were some concerts. Usually they're really exhausting. Like you feel like you're gonna faint at the end of it. This wasn't so. Like I actually had time to compose and things while at there. And then we would have these. We'd have these really long, luxurious like lunches that were delayed, and then after we would have these. I think they called them like one-on-one sessions. I think that's what they called them, and it was basically you met. They just paired you up with someone else from the program, and you would just share your music and you would talk together. Basically, kind of like a blind date of composers. But you're just sharing your work, and usually they were scheduled to be like an hour, but they were known that most people ended up like lasting 3-4 hours. Like, so and it was and then usually I think there was a couple concerts, but it wasn't jam packed. And like at night, people would play. We drink beers, and the beer they buy the beer from the grocery. You only had to pay the price of the grocery store, which was especially in Germany, really cheap.
Yeah, I remember
And we'd play like ping pong and
in
foosball.
Italy and in France, beer and wine was cheaper than water. I think some wine and some beers. It's like
So
it's no wonder that most people were drunk most of the day. Like not necessarily.
It was very fun, and I mean, I got to know like Kaya and Steve Teksugi from that program. And they're very wonderful people, and they're very passionate educators, like very super passionate educators. So that was that, and they said some things that they were really motivating, and I actually like had a very good performance of the string quartet, that same string quartet that we read poorly at University of Buffalo. They played it very well there, and they actually, when they played it a couple times after, I wasn't in attendance, but so there was something that happened out of that one. And then I, of course, attended June in Buffalo. I only attended one time as a actual full participant, mostly because of the cost. Because even though we were students, we still had to pay the tuition to attend the summer camp.
And it was like 700 or something like that.
Yes. And if you didn't pay this tuition, you could sit in all the master classes for free. You just couldn't present your work. You could sit in though, and you could sit in all the lectures. You could go to all the concerts for free. Basically, you just didn't have a work performed, and you didn't have a master class with these senior faculties. And I had a really good experience when I did do it, but it was like you could get a lot out of it for
just being a student.
It was really amazing. It was really an amazing perk. Yes. It was an amazing perk that we got to audit. We got to audit for free, essentially.
I think this is the only
we did not
one
get to attend for free.
Where we three have been to, because you've been to Darmstadt.
Oh, Sick Puppy. Yeah, 3.
We've been to Shunting. Have you been to Sick Puppy?
Not
You
really.
were, yeah, but and you were in Boston University, right?
I was in New England Conservatory,
In New
and
England
yeah,
Conservatory, but didn't
And
do
you
it.
missed their program.
and I
Yeah,
didn't. I was very quiet and didn't participate in anything at the New England Conservatory.
hmm,
So
it was a
um,
different You were a different person back then.
yeah, and so I am only aware of the sick puppy like actually it is because you Huang, because I knew you attended that, and then oh yeah, there's what a thing called sick puppy. Yeah, I only
But
find out very very late.
I went the same year as Rio Nakayama. We went
Oh,
together to
okay.
that one,
Yeah,
and you were
I
also friends
Yeah,
with him.
I knew because Lee Halla, he was a teaching at New England Conservatory, and then he moved to Northwestern. And I studied with him for a year, and so he very much promoted that festival. That's how I knew about it.
Okay, okay.
but
Uh-huh.
Um,
Yeah. The thing with Dune in Buffalo is that it was a lot more active than what we have already mentioned. From what you've mentioned,
it was a really active. Oh, I mean, that was the kind of festival that you really like
you
are
were
like
running.
non-functional for at least a week after.
Yes.
You had usually, if I can remember the schedule, usually there was like a 9 a.m. lecture, maybe something
Yes.
really early in the morning. Especially
9
it was like
yeah.
9 a.m. lecture with whatever senior composer was presenting his work.
It was
And
like
then that was like all morning.
yes, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I think that they took Fridays off, but then on Saturday there was another one, early morning too.
Yeah, something like that. And then they did, and then you had a master
Then there-
class. Usually, you had a, like maybe a little bit time to eat lunch, like but it was like a fast lunch, and then you went to a master class where you know each person in the master class got a chance to to present a piece and receive feedback from whatever senior composer that was. And
And I
then
think-
there was a student concert
There was
or
a
reading
student concert
session.
or a reading. Yeah, I remember reading sessions after.
It depended on the group what they did. Some did concerts, some did reading sessions.
Well, you attended to more
and,
than
like-
I did, even though not on a
And like
official
3 or
capacity.
4 maybe. It was maybe
Uh-huh.
3 or 4. O'clock, yeah, there was a concert. Basically, it was a concert of some, you know, and then you had a little bit of time for dinner, a quick dinner, and then you had another concert that would just feature the senior faculty's music and other music that the visiting ensembles.
For most of the nights, because one or two nights there were the student pieces, I believe. It was around
Really?
Friday.
I don't remember the students ever being on the nights. They were on the afternoons. Like
think so.
my piece was a performance, but it was not the evening performance.
Well,
I don't remember ever.
I'm gonna take your word for it. I think you have a better memory than I do.
But but a lot of people did get performances, and you know that performances, but they were like a 4 o'clock concert or something. And oftentimes, sometimes those concerts were just as good, if not better, than the 7 o'clock. You never know. And then
It wasn't
you
an
would,
overdose.
the social aspect of the festival after, and whatever hangout location was the hangout location of that June in Buffalo, which was different.
Every night.
After a while, it got to be Marriott. Well, it seemed to be like they went to the same spot almost every night. Most Union Buffaloes. Sometimes there'd be like one time, like one venture out somewhere further or something, but the it spot was not always the same. Usually, it resolved around the visit, like the senior composers and performers. People wanted to talk to them, and so if they were willing to go further, they would go further. But if they just wanted to have a bar at the hotel, everyone would flock to their hotel. Kind of that kind of atmosphere.
I miss a lot of fun. I didn't hang out with anybody after the concert at night. I
No,
basically
I was pretty tired. I
Really?
remember. Yeah,
I
Oh no, I
I
did.
probably I
One
hung out
year.
like 1 or 2 nights, but after that it was like too much. It
Oh,
was an overdose of.
one of the. I think there was one June in Buffalo. I hung out every single night.
Oh,
Every single night, and I went to every single morning lecture. I was young though. I was a young PhD student. I started at 22 when I started.
yeah.
So I mean, I was
I'm
on the
only
younger side.
2 years
I wouldn't be
older
able to
than
do it
you.
now.
I'm only two
Yeah,
years
I don't
older
know.
than you, but yeah, it was like restless. But we got to meet a lot of new composers. I remember.
It was restless. Like you were so tired at the end.
Yeah, because Sick Puppy, there was a lot of activity going on. Like it would be. I could compare it with Sick Puppy. Even though I've been to
Yeah.
Soundscape and to Zodiac Festival, and let me see what was the other one, a Malta one in Europe, but like their activities were more sparse. Sick Puppy and Union Buffalo, I will say, were the most restless ones. And comparing those two,
I think
Union Buffalo was much more hectic, much more active.
I think
All day.
June in Buffalo is really like an experiment, as much music as you could possibly fit in. Like they literally, I don't think they could have fit one more thing in without adding a day.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that would be like the well, compared to Darmstadt. You
Well,
go to
I do
Darmstadt.
remember.
How do you compare it to Darmstadt?
So Darmstadt is a lot more laid back. Well, there's a lot going on, but there's so much going on that like you literally could not go to everything at the same time.
Uh-huh.
So that kind of makes it like you feel like you don't feel like at June in Buffalo, you feel like you want to utilize every moment and you want to go everywhere because you can go everywhere. You're going to wear yourself out, but you can go to everything. In Darmstadt, you actually can't go to everything because sometimes there's like 5 concerts happening at the same time. And then you have to like pick. And there's a lot of, and like people it's a lot more of like a relaxed like atmosphere because a lot of the concerts are, it starts off one way and then people add concerts. Like anybody can just like sign up for these like open spaces and make like their own concert. So it's not so like administrative in that aspect. And then it's kind of like you kind of sign up for what you want. So I was part of Steven Takasugi's workshop with an ensemble called Makrap. And so he did a lot. So I did a lot with him. I really liked working with him. I didn't have the easiest time working with the ensemble, to be honest, but they ended up we ended up seeing eye to eye, and they ended up doing a really good job on my piece, but it wasn't an easy one to get there. But yeah, so I that was kind of my focus. I did do a couple master classes and a couple lessons, and because I was older at the time, it was after it was like the year after I graduated Buffalo. I pretty much picked, instead of picking the most famous composers, I just took the list of everyone who was going to be there, and then I circled everyone I didn't know. And then I went and I looked up all of their music, and the ones that I was really interested in, of the ones I didn't know, were the ones that you kind of have a preference of like what you want to do. And then they'll give you like 2 or 3 things, master classes or lessons. So I preferized, people I hadn't met before and oftentimes hadn't heard before, and I met some really cool people. So that was kind of cool. And just like that, I think the big thing about Darmstadt is it's really heavy on the social, just because there's so many people there. It's like it's a massive amount of people. You wouldn't even think there would be that many people that are interested in new music. And then you go to Darmstadt and you're like, because they're all there at the same time. But it's probably thousands of people there.
That was 2016, right? You said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just it's a definitely a cool scene. David Felder used to always kind of used to say that he didn't want to fund people going to Darmstadt because that it was just basically a great hang and people drinking beers together. And I understand why he would say that for sure, because there's definitely
it's kind
the
of the
social
Woodstock.
aspect is a bigger thing.
It's the Woodstock.
Yeah, it's a bigger thing.
Avant-garde music, let's say. Well,
And I think if you are part of a, so I was lucky that I was part of a workshop and I had a piece played. Most of the people who attend don't have any music being played. So it's a lot of money to be playing. Yeah, just to have like a lesson and hang out. It's a lot of money, especially if you don't live close. A lot of people, like people who live in Europe, I think can just like kind of, they can kind of just be in the atmosphere without paying, and maybe go to a concert or whatever. It's the fees basically gets you like the couple lessons or like the workshop or something like that. But yeah, it's definitely more worth it if you can be in a situation where you have your music played, for sure. Which would be like applying to a workshop, because you don't have to like apply to Darmstadt. You just go. You sign up and you go.
Okay.
Because they don't perform people's pieces typically. I didn't have to.
Like for Sean
I had to apply to the workshop.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Sean, was this the same experience you had on 2006?
And I believe it's 2004.
2004?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
I was 2016.
12 years apart.
I was much younger, so
Darmstadt it's been going on since the 1950s. So who doesn't know? It's got its history.
3 or 4 years, something like that.
3 or 4 years? I thought it was.
Yeah, it's not every year. It's not every year, but I can't remember.
Okay.
How many they skip?
So Sean Ting,
yeah, I'm here.
how was your experience over there?
I was very young back then, so
do you remember?
Myself was very, very conservative, and I would say that experience opened my ears. I would say that I had a private lesson with Haya too, and then many
over
years,
there.
Yeah, and then many years later, and the Haya, perhaps her memory was very good. So when we came across again in a course in Singapore, she asked me, "Hey, you look very familiar." But actually, I only went to Darmstadt once, and then
yeah, me too.
And I also had a private lesson with Toshio Hosokawa.
Oh,
And
Hosokawa, yeah.
I believe he presented a piece called Circulating Ocean or something like that, an orchestral piece. And I had a lot of like tidy stories about the Darmstadt back then, and but to be honest,
I have a question. How was Hosokawa as a teacher? I'm not a fan of his music. I know a lot of people that are, but I've never been able to get really into it.
I would say he seemed to be very concerned about whether you are very rigorous, very careful about pitches or rhythm, but something that is very strange nowadays, because I still remember he criticized me for the use of canonic imitation. He said it was old fashioned. But nowadays when I look into his scores, actually he used imitation extremely extensively. And basically, it's like I don't want to say that because it sounds like an accusation, but it really looks like copy and paste.
Oh,
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't want to say that because he's a very well esteemed respected figure. But my I mean no bad feeling, but a little but for what he is writing and what he suggested me, I would say there is a slight discrepancy. Yeah, and
yeah.
do what I
and
tell you, not what I do. Basically,
um
Yeah.
yeah,
he was a
but
father
I mean,
figure.
I did. Did you find like I found? I'm definitely glad I experienced Darmstadt one time. Um, I I'm not sure I would definitely go back if somebody paid for me to go, but I don't know if I wouldn't invest the finances to go at this point. But I do remember also like it was also very overwhelming for me at times because there is just so many people and so much stuff, and it's just kind of like in some ways, in that ways, it's like being in an academia like on extreme because there's just an insane number of people, and it's so easy to get like lost in the pack and like kind of compare and contrast. And a lot of the concerts I saw were very different than what I was used to by in American concert halls. And I was both encouraged because I wasn't really fond of what I was hearing in American concert halls, but also discouraged because there was a lot of problems to what I was hearing there in general as well. But yeah, I did you like it feel overwhelmed, especially as going so young?
um I my my initial reaction is what I was working was too simple because and I was very confident before going to Darmstadt because my teacher was very nice to me. And then and I just realized, oh, the world is so big. I think that's good. I had the
Mm-hmm.
same feeling when I attended Royalmont back in 2012, I believe, and and then
I remember. I
and then
remember you going there.
and
Yeah,
then I
that
and
was in France, right?
yeah, in France, it is. I
Do
mean,
you remember the city or no?
um, there was a shuttle bus from the airport, and then I I believe it was a long ride, but
Okay,
but I forgot the name of the city.
it's fine.
Um, and when I
But
went to
you could either go there as a composer or as a performer, right?
as a composer, and then I for Darmstadt, I didn't have any piece for for the course. Just like what Megan said, when you attend when you attend Darmstadt, you can sign up for various workshops, and then you don't really need to present any piece if you don't have anything ready, and no obligation at all. Very free, I would say, and then you have a lot of chances to explore the music, the presenters, the ensemble, as well as the city if you want to travel a little bit, although there's not too many things for you to see. Um, it's like a typical college town. Um,
That's Darmstadt.
what I remember was like Darmstadt was a very not tiny. I mean, tidy, very
Tidy.
neat.
Uh-huh.
Like the build, the design, the architectures was very similar
Mm-hmm.
and something like that. Um, and I was very ecstatic about the day off on Sunday, and then when I left the hostel, and then I just realized the city was basically empty. Perhaps people were very religious, and then they didn't have anything to do on Sunday except going to church. I don't know, but my feeling about Darmstadt was more like a chance to open my ears, and I got to see a lot of scores that
Oh, yeah.
I didn't have any chance to see in Hong Kong. Um, back then, because it was it was 2004, so it is the internet was not that powerful, and a lot of time if we want to read scores, we rely on the purchases of the
For
department.
libraries.
Yeah, so the
Yeah.
library. So and basically I was not, of course I didn't work back then, so I didn't have money to buy any scores or CDs that I truly love. And as but when I went to Darmstadt, I got to see a lot of stuff, and some of
Yeah.
the ideas probably changed my music a little bit, but have to be frank, I was not wise enough to understand everything or assimilate everything that I got from the festival. Therefore, actually, if I have a chance, I would like to go there again. But maybe I'm too old now because I have the family to worry. Um, I believe like 2010.
Well, you can go as like a junior, like they sometimes they'll pick somebody like of our status that's like, you know, done with like an emerging composer that's done with their PhD to you know, do some like mini workshop there, and they'll pay for their way. So maybe that.
I think in 2008 or 2010, I probably 2010 10 or something like that. I wrote a string quartet and that was selected by the workshop, but I didn't attend. I didn't make it. Money issue, to be honest, because traveling.
Did they still do the string quartet?
Spring, because Jackpot had a workshop that you could submit score. So
Okay, but
I-
were they
I don't think
were they
I
still
don't,
able to play it without you attended or no?
I don't think so because
Yeah.
years after that, some Hong Kong composers talked with me. They said, "Oh, they asked me why I didn't attend that." Because they said maybe my name was there for whatever reason, but I didn't. But I didn't attend. They didn't read it. I believe. Yeah. Yeah, because
Yeah.
in those conversations nobody mentioned the piece, so I guess the piece was not read at all. And actually I didn't like that piece, so it's fine. But that's not. But
Wait.
Yeah.
Are you talking about Royamon? No.
no, I'm still talking
Darmstadt.
about
Darmstadt.
Darmstadt. Yeah,
Still, yeah.
but
Okay.
but I believe maybe it's good if you have anything that workshopped or even performed in Darmstadt. In terms of experience or in terms of career, maybe probably it's very helpful. But if you talk about Royal Mon,
Yeah.
when Megan talked about Schloss Solitude, I I would say
Mhm.
the food at Royal Mon was very good too. It was very good. I couldn't name
Okay.
I couldn't name the dishes. I I didn't know French, but it was good. I assume it's French cuisine because it took place
Wait, what?
in France.
Didn't you take the French exam?
Yeah, don't mention about it.
I did too.
I'm embarrassing myself and I brought it up.
I may have had to take that French exam 2 times, so.
Okay.
And
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's good.
and for Royal Mon,
Sorry.
the structure is it's more like every year they pick like 20, I believe, 20 or 12, I forgot the number of students, and then you attend like a 20-day workshop, and then the accommodation,
So
food.
are there like
20 days?
senior composers or is there like one? How does it work with faculty? How many faculty are there? Is there like a whole
20
lot of, or-
days.
I
3
believe
weeks of festival. Wow.
I believe there were
Mhm.
for my years at least there were 3. Brian Fernihao, Rafael Sando, and
Oh.
Alberto Posades. I don't know whether I'm pronouncing
Okay.
the
I
name
don't know.
right. A Spanish composer
Two
who
are
and
Yes.
seen in Buffalo.
Oh, but
and
Visitors.
Shendo and Fernie were very hot at the time, I guess.
and so every day you had a chance to attend their presentation, and then you actually stay there and and work on your piece, because you will have you would have a piece perform at the end of the so-called festival or course, whatever you call it. um yeah, I think it's good. I got to learn a really good friend who I kept on discussing pieces even after the festival. um it was somehow a very competitive course, and if you are strong enough and if your piece is good, they may further sponsor you for another commission or another performance after that. Unfortunately, I wasn't that good either. But after that, I would say um I was again influenced a lot by by that festival, and decided to change my style aesthetics. So I would say some
Oh,
yeah. So I would say attending Royal Mon um from at least for me, I would say it was like a failure because I didn't present a very good piece, a piece that
what
I
piece was it for? What was
it
the
was a piece
instrumentation?
for two piano and two percussion.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I basically hide this piece from my catalog.
I
Even
remember you writing it, but I don't remember you showing it.
and
Yeah.
I even if I still mention my attendance, but I basically hide the piece from my work list. I didn't show that piece on my SoundCloud or homepage, anything like that. But it was an impactful experience. Yeah. Yeah. I I attended several editions of Journey in Buffalo too. I think I attended at least three times.
Three
One,
times.
yeah, once was with Verge Ensemble. I think that's what was based in Washington. And then had a piece read by Aditi Quartet, and then I had another one read by Linnea Ensemble. I I I only attended my workshop, some of the master classes for during in Buffalo, because I left woke up in time.
Early.
So I usually miss that, or I attended the lecture but actually I fell asleep. Hopefully David is not listening to this podcast now. Um,
Or he'll like retroactively get rid of your, paper that doesn't so good.
sorry, David. Thanks
Don't
for being
worry.
supportive.
You're not a student.
You know what though?
anymore.
But like a
Don't
lot of
matter.
those were like, I will say, and that's a bit like, so the composers were presenting their work. Many composers did not have interesting work. Number one, that were there. Some other composers
Didn't
had
have
some
what?
interesting works, but didn't
Didn't
have
have.
interesting work.
Okay.
Some of
Oh,
the
okay.
senior
Yeah, yeah.
composers just
Yes.
didn't have interesting.
Yes.
Didn't have interesting work.
Oh
Some
my
of
God.
them had some interesting work, but weren't very good about presenting them. To be quite frank, I think actually usually David Felder's lectures were the best almost every year because he was good at presenting his work. I don't,
I
like
didn't. From the festivals I've been to. I think that in Union Buffalo, I learned the least, honestly speaking. Like, even though it was so jam packed and there was so many
Well, I don't know about
presentations.
learning. I'm just saying what I was entertained by, really. I guess
Well,
what I was entertained by.
it was probably the years or
Yeah.
the senior composers that were there when I attended.
I would say
They
none
didn't
of.
seem that interesting to me, and they didn't uh,
I
really
mean,
touch me. Or probably because it was so jam packed, like you couldn't have a one on one with a senior composer, a real one
yeah.
on one where you could
I mean, it was
learn
hard to
something
find a match
meaningful.
too. I
Uh,
remember the year Brian Ferniehow was on faculty. He had some interesting things to say. I mean, they weren't life changing things. They weren't. They didn't change my music, but he did have some interesting things to say about my music and other people's music too. Probably he was probably one of the better ones. Rafael Sendo was that year too. Gusta Reed Thomas.
Augusta Reed Thomas was every
Probably
year.
Robert Beeser or something like that.
Really?
So was Robert Beeser.
Uh, Robert,
You, s-
I took some classes with him, and
you
well,
seems to be obsessed with Robert.
well,
Well,
uh,
people can read the media.
I,
People can read New York Times articles about him and have the opinions that they want to have. So
I
Sorry.
we don't need to report on. Other people have already reported on him. We don't need to. But yeah. I don't
his
remember.
master class,
It was more
but
about being in the atmosphere.
on the musical aspect, the teacher aspect. Well, he didn't teach me anything, but he didn't show me anything, I should say. But oh, it's hard to word things. But uh, let's say that I didn't learn anything from him because I
I
don't think
mean,
that he had anything
I mean,
like really
no.
deep to say about music. Like his music, his for
Well,
me,
our music especially.
yeah, it was like a words apart.
There was a range. So I think Juno Buffalo is probably one of the more progressive,
I will say very eclectic.
eclectic
Yeah,
festivals in the States anyway, in the United States. But there was a wide range. So there were some young composers that were doing very radical things. And then there were some young composers from very, very conservative conservatories that were, doing neoclassical things too. So there was,
yeah.
and the faculties was a range too. There was, some people who were more progressive composers, but then many people who were not. So
But
yeah, it was very eclectic.
that was in Union Buffalo, and I think that most festivals you are gonna get one or two senior composers, and you're gonna spend 1 or 2 weeks with them, and that's been my experience for
I think it's really depends on
when
what's your goal for attending a summer festival.
yeah,
If you want to get a piece performed and I think Junior Buffalo is a nice opportunity. The pieces, the
Mhm.
performances sound well rehearsed, and I would say that's very nice.
Mhm.
But if you aim at getting more advice, instructions from the senior composer, maybe you will get some, but very likely you will be disappointed because the senior composers are usually very busy with or their own performances and the lessons are
Mhm.
to be honest a little bit too polite or too superficial.
Well,
also
and quite frankly,
there's so many
oftentimes they're big
students.
names, and
Yeah,
yeah, and they were always big names in composition, and not everyone with a big name has passion for teaching. Like some people just don't care.
Right.
But most
Which is
most of
fine.
them most of them were teachers at institutions,
Yep.
regardless.
Yeah. But I
But
think they
at the
were
same
just
time,
because
I
that was
think
how
that,
to finance their life too.
well, yeah, most of the time. But I
Yeah.
think that also
But there
the
were some that
quantity
were
of
passionate though.
students, it kind of diluted them. Kind of like they had like 20 minutes
Well,
to see your piece and see it like superficially, give
yeah.
some throwaway comments, and that was it. So
Well,
probably
it
it's
also
something
depended
about
on
the
the June in
format.
Buffalo. I don't know if you remember, but like I always thought it was one thing I thought was weird about June in Buffalo was that the number of student composers they accepted was widely different every summer. So sometimes they would have only like 15 student composers, and then the next year they might have 35. And I
Oh,
never really I understood why that was. Where a lot of other, other festivals might have like a certain format and they're always kind of similar, but that it
I
wasn't
it
like
was
that. And I
around
don't think,
20 when I was there, 2011,
yeah,
2012. But most other festivals I attended to were like 8 composers, 10 composers maximum. It was a shorter list, so that also influenced it. There was the
yeah.
one that I got the most out of was Soundscape Festival. The Soundscape Festival,
Where is it? In
probably
Italy?
in
Where's
Italy.
that?
In Italy, and there was only one senior composer, and we were like 5 student composers, and we spent
Who was the
time.
senior composer?
The senior composer that year's name was Andrew List. He's
Okay.
not that well known, but I he had some really good ideas about
Was there like
everyone's
resident ensembles
music.
or anything like that, or two, or no?
There were no, there were students. It was more or less like
Okay.
sick puppy in that way. So
Hmm.
some students that didn't have experience with contemporary music got really into it there. Others were more mature and already had more experience. So the idea was to bring, it was kind of a commune of young musicians in a way, you might say. And the composers had a schedule and the performers had another schedule, and in the end they will come together to perform the pieces. It was really cool, but the thing is that for this particular festival I didn't have my piece finished, so I had to work a lot over there over the 2 weeks. So I worked a lot with
That's how I was for June in
Andrew.
Buffalo.
Yeah, it reminded me of you in Buffalo in that sense. So, but yeah, I got to work a lot with this, and he had some very good ideas. So, like, why don't you do this? Or probably you can do this here. It wasn't that much about form or materials. It was more about the writing itself, about the notation. So, uh, I think that yeah, you have to look at the
So did you
format.
have like frequent lessons?
Yes,
Did you have like frequent lessons?
yeah, we had group lessons and we had individual lessons. Like every 2 days or so, we had individual lessons.
Oh, that's very
We will
cool.
meet like
Yeah.
in the, it was a small town, Valdeblore. What was it? It wait, I'm confusing it. No, this was the Zodiac Festival. In France, Valdeblore. And it was in a small town in Valdeblore was the name, and we will have a coffee in the middle of the town and stuff, and we will have the lessons there, very informal, but he will have he will point out some very good things. And that takes me to say that that leads me to say that you should look at the format of what's the format of the festival itself, because if there are the fewer the composers, sorry, the more you are gonna get out as a student of composition, because from him I was able to get another perspective on my own music, because you are all year listening to the same t-shirt, all the year listening to the same ideas, to the same aesthetic, and you kind of like get sucked into that aesthetic in a way. And it was kind of refreshing to hear another take, or see what others eyes saw on my music, and have on other ideas, like from the compositional aspect. That was very good, and I remember that festival very fondly because of that. And in the end, it was a very good performance from the students. We had to work with the performers on a not on a daily basis, but more or less. And even if they weren't so much into contemporary music, at by the end of the festival, you could see that you bonded with them, and that they cared about your music more and more as you rehearse with them. Like unlike other festivals, you got a lot of rehearsal time, like one-on-one rehearsal time, and I think that that's very important. That they get, if the performers get your music, they're gonna play it better, and the more time they spend with it, the better it's gonna get performed. The more they understand it, let's say. Uh, so um, yeah, I that was the Zodiac Festival. The Soundscapes Festival was another one in Italy. That was the Soundscape. I was talking about the Zodiac Festival. The Soundscapes Festival was more like a Royal Rumble. I will say it was like 10 to 15 composers and 15 to 20 performers, and it was more of a commune, and we were all living in the same place, like 5 people per room or something like that. It was very, I don't know, I wouldn't do it right now, but you kind of bonded in a very special way. And
Hmm. That's how I
uh
feel like. I
I
definitely feel like a bond with like of the composers that I did Slash Solitude with. There was just a handful of them.
yeah,
Um,
and
and most
I
of them
met
I haven't seen since, or I've seen one like years after, and it's special.
yeah, it's like you get to live with them for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I seem surprised with the Royamon time. You were like 3 weeks over there, but at the same time I
I think
did
Slash
some
Solitude
festivals.
was 3.5 weeks, maybe a
Yeah,
month.
yeah, I did some festivals that were
Mhm.
almost that long, like two.
Maybe
And
that's
you,
why it was a little bit more laid back than a June in Buffalo because it was longer.
well, you got a point. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess that, well, networking is a very important part of all of this that you should consider, because a lot of the composers I met, and
Hmm.
many of the performers I met are still active today. They're making music around uh, 10,
Hmm.
15 years afterwards. If you want, that's one aspect that you can get out of summer festivals. Another aspect will be the pedagogical aspect, but that one is the one that's more hit or miss, I will say, because from
Yeah.
some festivals you may get a very good experience, pedagogical experience, where you kind of look into your music, into your scores with another more mature composer, with different eyes and from another perspective, and that gives you a more holistic view of what your music is about. But that you should be, it's probably about the numbers. And I didn't know about this composer, and his music, let's say, is not very that avant-garde or anything, but at the same time, he had an eye. He was a good musician, and good musicians can recognize patterns and music, and like, okay, this is what your music is about. Don't you think you should probably try this thing or try this other thing and stuff like that? So knowing it was luck that time because I didn't know anything about him, but probably the ratio had a lot to do because we were like 5 or 6 composers, student composers, and
Yeah.
we spent a lot of time with him. And the more time you spend with a more experienced composer, the more he's gonna consider and reconsider your music, especially if you're working on a piece with him or on or an ongoing piece. Like he's seeing your thinking process, your creative process. So that's one thing to consider if you want to uh, develop your technique, let's say, as a composer during these festivals. Networking, uh, developing technique, that's like you will have to kind of um, see the ratio of senior composers in comparison to student composers. How much time are you gonna be there? How
Hmm.
much time are they gonna spend with your music, etc., etc. The other thing that we mentioned was that your piece is gonna get played, right? uh,
Hmm.
but in what capacity? Some of these festivals only offer readings. Most of the festivals I attended to were actual concerts, were actual recitals,
Yeah, me too.
and most of this. But one should be aware if they are just gonna be readings, because if they are just gonna be readings, then it's probably they're not gonna take the time to see your music in a more detailed manner or take it as seriously or be like, are they gonna play a main concert, and is your music gonna be relegated to a second plane or not? Like, also what I've learned is that
Yeah.
if they are if you are a student composer and they are a big name or an emerging group or something like that, and they are playing Brian Fernihau, Rafael Shendo's new music, uh, I don't know, Haya Chernowin's new music, they're gonna pay more attention to that music and not so much attention to your music. So probably you may have your name like, oh, this big name or mid-tier group played my music, but it wasn't that well performed. Whereas if you work with student performers, sometimes they take more time. You get to know them better. The relationship you develop with them is a more fruitful one. They start caring more about your music, about what your music is about, and that
Hmm.
often yields better performances, in my experience. And I think those are the
Yeah.
three main things that you can
Very
I
get
think
fair
I
comment.
think Yeah, I think what you say about like building connections and relationships is really important because oftentimes like in your everyday, even in school, like your everyday, so like you're mostly in the same, when like we were at UB, I saw the same 20 people every day, and I never saw any new faces except when they brought in a couple composers, you'd see a new face for a day, or they brought in a couple musicians, but you're kind of around the same people all the time, so it does allow you to like meet a lot of people. And that was one of the cool things about having a festival at our university, was that we had so many people just coming in, and we gotta every year, and we gotta meet them all. And I will say, like, I've had in general very good experiences, um, where I don't regret any of the festivals I went to. Um, I've had pretty good performances at pretty much all of the at least pretty good to even really good performances at all the summer festivals I attended. I don't know if I can say that some of them, I think probably Slaw Solitude was a lot more one-on-one. I probably got more pedagogically, like I got more out of as a developing composer, like developing my skills, maybe out of that one than some others. Yeah, but I don't regret any of them. The hard part about it is the financing, really.
Yeah. And people
Yeah,
should
that's the
always be
hard part
looking.
because I mean, I was luckily in most universities. Sometimes they don't advertise it, but they usually have some funds that is possible to obtain to attend some of these festivals. So that's something definitely, if you're a student, to look out for. I definitely I received some funding. I believe I received some funding, partial funding for like Sick Puppy, and I know Slaw Solitude. I received actually full funding from and it wasn't a fund through the composition department. It was a fund through the University of Buffalo. Had like a general summer music. It wasn't music. It was just summer research fund for the College of Arts and Sciences, and I was able to get funding through that, which is amazing. It's really amazing.
Oh, so you applied
You know,
as if it were an investigation or something, as if you were researching.
I think I had to. I think I had
You had to put it that way.
I think I had. Yeah, I had to put it like how it was gonna, what kind of materials I was gonna research and develop my
It was
craft.
a very academic
I
way,
did
then.
actually. Yeah, I did actually write a significant portion of Daring Doris and Slaw Solitude, and a lot of my experience of being there and really being in that location was really became that piece.
And did that Takasugi and Chernobyl saw your creative process? Did they experience it?
I can't remember if I showed them that because I was just starting the piece, so I had definitely a lot of the main ideas, a lot of like I had kind of the piece laid out, but I don't know if I had it laid out in a way that it was easy to present to other people that weren't in my head. I can't remember if I showed them giraffes or not. I feel like I must have. I probably did because I'm not very like I'm not very like secretive or shy about my materials. Lots of my materials are probably not good. I mean, some of them are, but like it's just what it is. I am a human, so like I don't need I don't. I'm sure I would have showed them. I don't know. I wouldn't have. Yeah, but I just can't remember like their reaction. I remember very like everybody was going into lessons with Haya Zernowin, and they were just like, oh my gosh, like they absolutely like just mind blown, changed the way they thought about the world, like kind of thing. It was the most amazing thing, and I was just so excited for my lesson with her.
Yeah, why?
And it was good. My lesson with her was good. I remember I was very interesting. She had interesting things to say, but it wasn't. I didn't have that reaction to her.
Did you
I
have
don't know. It's maybe
apotheosis? Did it change you spiritually or something? No?
no, not really. No, I mean, I remember kind of being disappointed. Not because the lesson wasn't good. It just didn't fit the description others were saying of it, and I actually was surprised. I really wanted to study with Haya. That's kind of was my draw to the festival. And I really, she's a brilliant composer and a really, really kind person. And those two don't come together very often. In that level of prestige anyway. With the prestige she has. There's a lot of people like of our level that are
Well,
she
seems
brilliant composers, but
I never met her actually, even though a lot of our peers have. A lot of our peers have taken classes with them. Both of you have, for example, but she's always seemed like a really happy person. Like I don't know, happy about
Yeah,
being alive,
she definitely
and
has like a
happy.
toughness she definitely has a toughness to her, because I mean she had to especially as a female composer in her generation, like, but like she yes, just very happy person, very warm heart. She just feels very genuine, like she cares about other people. um yeah, obviously her music is incredible, like really she's an incredible person all the way around. But I kind of feel like actually, like, as a teacher, like a lot of David Felder students did gravitate towards her programs, and a lot of David Felder programs students did also apply with her. And I actually
Yeah,
kind of
I
feel
know,
like
I
they
know.
are, and they both have a UCSD background. I do think they are somewhat similar teachers, at least not their personas, but like the way they teach composition. And so maybe that
Aesthetically,
was
with a focus on
yeah, so maybe that was
and not on technique.
maybe that's why I wasn't so mind blown, because I had been hearing a lot of that stuff for a full year already, because I had been studying with David for a full year. So maybe that was it. But I actually found myself that I resonated with Stephen Takasugi even more so. Who is also unbelievably kind and caring. I mean, they're really
So you would say that Schloss
a powerhouse.
was very important in your formation as a composer, as a pedagogical, let's say, festival, in a way.
Yeah. I mean, I think they all were to some in a different way, but yeah, I think pedagogically, like, definitely Sloth Solitude. Probably June in Buffalo. That's the festival that premiered Liaison, and that was probably arguably the most important premiere performance I've had. I mean, that or other performances of that piece too, but that was the first
On
performance of
that
that piece. Um,
on that note, what I wanted to say about that is that my second appearance there, 2012, it was the performance of the percussion duo I wrote, and
mhm.
it was played by Bobby and Jason, and I prefer that they played it instead of a more, uh, let's say, recognized or high level in
Yeah,
a way group, because they really cared about the music. This festival
yeah. And
kind of
I
taught
went to
me.
the festival too with Melanie, who I had a big relationship with.
Mhm.
We had a very long term collaboration. Um, and she's still someone I, consider a very dear friend, someone I really respect as an artist. So like, yeah, and I think that was different because I guess I didn't have the typical Juno Buffalo experience, because I never I never just received it. Probably Chung Ting had. I mean, I guess with the Arditi Quartet reading, that's probably the most maybe standard Juno
Uh,
Buffalo experience. I don't know.
Something wrote in the chat that he will be right back, probably.
I know,
Yeah,
but he
but
had
yeah,
talked about he
I
had
think
the
everybody wanted
Arditi.
Arditi to play their music, Arditi or Signal or something like that. But I remember the year prior, I had a piece. I'm not gonna mention the performer, and the performance was really bad, and I was
What
really
what
this.
ensemble? What was it? Was instrumentation?
It was
Was
for
it like
guitar.
a chamber ensemble?
No, for guitar.
Okay, all right.
Uh, and I was
That was
I
Juno Buffalo.
yeah, yeah, and I didn't
I
really
thought that
like.
was just at
No,
UB.
yes, it was Uniball.
Okay.
I didn't really like it, and the year after it was with Bobby and Jason with the Crossfire duo. I hope they
Okay.
reunite at some point, some in time. Crossfire duo, percussion duo. Um,
Yeah, I don't know
and
what
I
they're
really
what they're what they're up to.
that's when that contrast kind of taught me, and also the guitar piece got performed afterwards by a friend of mine that really got into the score and really nailed it. It was a lot of work. We went back and forth, but that's when I could learn at least from experience, at least the hard way, that for me it is preferable to have somebody that cares about my music, because that way it's gonna be projected in a more authentic manner than having a big name. Like
Yeah.
sometimes when you're young, you are looking for the Arditi Quartet. Yeah, they're gonna play my music, etc., etc. But the
But
Arditi
you
Quartet,
never really know though either. Like it's
okay.
La Solitude. I had a subset of it wasn't a string. It was a sub. They had ensembles surplus there. I
Mhm,
had a subset of them that made
mhm,
up the quartet, so they weren't like a quartet that normally played as a quartet. They normally played as a chamber ensemble,
mhm.
but they played my string quartet, and actually they played it for the Saw Solitude. Actually, they played it a couple more times. It's not typical, but it does happen.
And
I don't think it
but
happened.
it resonated with them, and kind of
Yeah.
like they cared about your music. Whereas the first time it was played, the performers were jammed with other types of music that they considered to be more important at the time, at least,
Hmm.
and
For sure. Yeah.
that's what yielded the kind of mediocre performance or reading. That's what I'm trying to get at. Um, yeah, of course
Yeah.
you can bond with bigger names, and if they like your music and they're gonna play it more for certain, that's what you're looking for. But in the end, it's
Well,
like,
and the recordings sometimes, especially when you're young, those recordings from the summer festivals
mhm,
were, I mean, probably crucial. Like they were 100% my college application. I'm sure some of the
yes,
recordings I sent to Buffalo for my PhD were from summer festivals.
yes,
Um,
yes,
yeah, I mean, it's it's especially then, especially when we were going to school, you could now you can make maybe not a great recording without knowledge, but like you can make like you can buy like I have this little thing sitting on my desk right here. You can buy
mhm,
this for like a couple $100, turn it on, and get a pretty decent sounding recording. It wasn't that easy to make, even if you had like friends to play your music. It wasn't like easy or financially able, like easy to get
yes,
recordings in like the 2000s. Um, so and all these competitions wanted them and required them. So that was like a big deal. And I'm wondering if it's maybe less relevant now because um, you could probably do it a lot on your own. More, at least it's a possibility. It
yes.
wasn't at
But
all
to
then.
have a good, okay, you have these devices, but at the same time, they they pick up a lot of noise. It's like if you want a
Mhm.
professional sounding recording, still it's gonna.
Yeah, but
I,
you
I would
usually you
recommend.
get a recording of a live performance, and that's a different kind of recording too.
Yes, yes. Well,
Mhm.
I would recommend still to do them, because you get a lot of experience in these festivals in many aspects in that we've mentioned. Even
Yeah,
if
I mean,
they are kind of
I would do them
expensive.
within financial reason. I would say.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I was getting at. If you, yeah, you might hesitate because of tuition, for example, but there are many ways that they don't mention you at school, because probably the teachers, the professors don't even know about them, or don't care that much, or for
Mhm.
whatever reason. If you're in an institution, you're not gonna be there
Mhm.
for the rest of your life, and there are many ways that you can get money out of the institution, through the institution, for you to attend, for you to get your artistic needs met. So try and find.
Much more so than after you graduate. Like
Definitely,
after you graduate, the funds are not there in any way. I mean,
no, they are coming from your
yeah,
pocket.
yeah,
But
and
I,
if you're
I
gonna be
think
a
that
composer, you're probably not gonna have deep pockets. So
I think that from what we've all mentioned here, festivals, summer festivals have been kind of important in our formation as composers.
Yeah.
Like they've been stepping stones in one way or the other. Like you get born out from a year, an academic year from August to May, right? With the same composer, teacher, professor, composition professor. He gets tired of your stuff. You get tired of his stuff. Like it's like, okay, I don't want to see you for a few months, especially if you're gonna continue with him the following year. Having these summer festivals is a way to keep on going that enthusiasm for composition, for music,
Yeah.
without having to get repetitive uh, within an
And
institution with the same person, and you don't get them mingled, you don't mix them, because sometimes
yeah.
you mix the discipline, the composition discipline, with the person that is teaching it, or the atmosphere where you are, right? A change
There is
of
something
place.
about though.
Yeah.
That's not like to discredit like studying with the same person in an
No,
academic
no,
program
no.
for
I
several years. Because I think there is something to that. And I do think like in my experience, I definitely got more out of people I studied with the longer I studied with them, because like I kind of learned how to study with them and how to get what they had to offer out of their brain in a way that I could receive it. And that wasn't always, something I was able to do first lesson or even first couple months, depending on the person. Um,
I see where you're
but yeah,
coming from.
it is nice to see, to have like a break and have another perspective. And just to kind of see like it's really easy to see like, I remember when I was a grad student, my world felt so small. There was a really small circle of people in the music grad program. I
That
knew
too. That
almost
too.
nobody that wasn't in there. So it was, and we kind of, I think there was competitiveness there, and there was hard feelings sometimes, but we kind of all had a way of working with each other and kind of seeming supportive of each other. And some people really were supportive of each other, but I think even those maybe that had a harder time with it still kind of had a way of like kind of putting on that like front, and we seemed all like really amenable. And then you go into another environment, and they might have completely different opinions than when we presented the same piece at seminar. So it's just that's
Yeah,
different too.
yeah. I was gonna mention something along those lines too, because you believe that there's only that point of view, and that's not the
Yeah.
truth. You get so entangled, so enclosed in that atmosphere, in that setting, in that way of thinking. Well, I remember at our old school at UB, University of Buffalo, uh, Felder always used to talk against groupthink, but groupthink is kind of inevitable. Tribal thinking, it's kind of what we gravitate towards to. And these
Mhm.
festivals kind of make you take a break for the good or the worse from that groupthink. Groupthink is always gonna happen, whereas one likes it or not, whereas one fight against it, or whereas one promotes it or kind of tries to fight against it. So it's always nice. It's a change of pace, a change of setting, a change of minds. You see how other people, what other people are doing too. Like your work gets bigger, literally. What you were saying, like
Mhm.
the work was
Yeah.
small, your work gets, your point of view gets bigger. Then, well, you kind of go back to
Oh yeah.
normalcy
And especially
doing
like
your
if you go
work.
to a very like different location. Like we've all talked
Especially,
about festivals
yeah,
over in Europe, and
yes,
we studied in Buffalo, New York. And Buffalo, New York, I think in terms of it can be a radical place for the state, I think. And there was a lot of interesting things being presented there. There was a lot of not so interesting things too, as with every place. Every place there has that. But I remember, like when I went to Darmstadt, I was really struck by just there was a lot of different things. Like there was a lot of things that I just didn't think I had never seen being presented. A lot more theatrical stuff. A lot more multimedia thing. I mean, not now. There's more than there used to be, but like 10 years ago, and when we were in school, it wasn't a ton of it, and a lot more kind of more lighthearted works. There was a problems to a lot of what they were presenting too, but it was different problems than what I was used to experiencing. So that was kind of refreshing.
Yeah, definitely. Chanting, what about you? What do you think it's like? What did you get out of these festivals? What do you think is important?
I really cherish every festival for the chance to present my piece. I myself is a very quiet person, not very good at socializing. So I a huge regret that I didn't create a lot of connection myself. So having chances to present pieces at festivals, which means I don't have to organize a lot of stuff myself. Somehow, because of this, I get to compose and get to practice how to compose. I believe, although composition is I mean, it's mostly about our mind, our ears, but it requires a lot of practice too. So the festival is those festivals are like filling up the void in summer or in whatever winter be. I don't know. So I could keep on composing. Ideally, you don't need a festivals or commission to compose. You can just grab a few pieces of paper and then you write your stuff. But we need that line. We need a lot of motivation. No matter a recognition, prizes, an actual concert. We need this kind of things to help us like remain motivated. So for
To
me,
have a project, an active project, to have something to be
yeah,
a goal.
For me, it's if I can't write a project unless or be motivated to actually write a completed project unless I have some idea of like how it will be realized. Even if it's a small thing, like a small performance or a friend doing it or whatever. But like, if I can't envision, I can't really envision myself just like picking some random instrumentation and then writing
a sonata,
writing
a sonata for violin and piano, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody came up to me and been like, "Oh, I want a sonata for violin piano," first I'd be like, "Oh, hey, have you heard anything I do?" And if they said yes, I'd be like, "Okay, sure, I'll write that piece for you then." If I said, if they said no, maybe I'm like, "Oh, maybe you should before you are willing to commit." But, anyways, yeah, but I mean, it's hard to devote that time and not, and not have any idea like that. Oh,
if it's ever gonna get played.
Ultimately, we make paper. I mean, that's what we make. I mean, we make paper with fancy scribbles on it that we hope will be translated into music. But like the paper itself, in my opinion, the paper itself is not
worthless. It's water.
Yeah. So Yeah,
in
I
the
mean, I
end,
know
if
there are
it doesn't get played,
contrasting opinions, but
if it doesn't get played, what's the point in the end?
yeah, so
So
I really have a hard time committing at all to. I don't think I've ever written a piece that didn't have some kind of opportunity or performer interested or something. Even when I was young, I don't think so. I don't know. I probably maybe I think I'm just not. I need the motivation, not self motivated enough.
well, it's like screaming at the sky, I guess. You were
And
gonna, yeah,
and when you talk about group thing, I just like what I said I mean before I went to Darmstadt, I was very confident about myself because at schools teachers were like nice, and then the classmates or whoever everybody was very positive of my work. So sometimes we need festivals to see things, to help us see things differently. And for me it's like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of festival make me, I mean, force me to change, and a lot of them make my music very different. Yeah, so I really appreciate all the people who pick me for their festival, all the organizers.
Yeah, me
Yeah,
too.
very thankful about that. Yeah.
I've met just a lot of all sorts of people. I've met some incredible people. I've met some amazing artists. I've met some ones that are less so in all those categories. Some really eclectic,
yeah,
interesting. I mean, but but I'm so thankful to have met all these people in all these different scenarios.
yeah, yeah. I was just remembering some arrogant composers. They usually don't end up well.
Yeah.
Uh, well,
No, but you know what? There wasn't. I will say the one thing about UB, I don't think there was anyone that I would consider at least particularly arrogant.
mhm, mhm.
Everybody had kind of a fairly good head on their shoulders, but there definitely were some composers I would consider particularly arrogant. Some young composers that came into June of Buffalo. So that was, and other festivals we
Yeah,
went to too. But
that's what
um,
I
that was
meant.
interesting to see.
Not at
Yeah,
UB. At UB,
yeah,
everyone was kind of very polite in the end. At least
yeah,
during the time we were in the seminar and stuff. I don't know about afterwards. I don't know about before. But yeah, you get to
yeah.
meet
But I had
some
heard before it
personalities.
was a little bit more. It was more hardcore. I had heard stories from like Aaron Cassidy, like when he went, it was much more big clashing personalities, and that wasn't the case. I don't think for us, but or anyone at Buffalo. But yeah, there were some big, there are definitely some big personalities. I think at June of Buffalo for sure.
During
And it was
Buffalo,
also,
yeah.
I think for me too, that I think so as like we were like the hosts, we were considered the host, and like I had a car, and David Felder would always like plead with people that because Buffalo is not a very
But no,
travel friendly city,
no, public transportation.
and he really relied on us to make it a good experience for everybody else. And so like and I wanted to play the part, and there was people I hung with that I would have, had I not felt obligated, I would have never hung with them. Just because they were just so different. They were just so different, like in every way. And I wrote in, I remember like one time I ended up, I think it was someone like from Juilliard. I ended up having to like drive him to the falls
This was
You know,
2013.
and
Must have been. I didn't meet anyone from Juilliard. I don't
it
think.
was like, you know, we had nothing really musically in common, but it was interesting to kind of see the kinds of things, you know, he thought about and the way he thought, because it was, you know, I don't know if it was changing, but it's interesting to like see people different than you. Maybe if anything, it just kind of reaffirmed the way I thought for myself. But yeah, I mean, I don't think I would have, you know, ever. I would have been polite to him, but I would have never, you know, I would have never interested me to have a conversation with him.
It seems like
Otherwise,
you are the one that got the
yeah.
most out of Union Buffalo. I don't know why, but it's like
But the thing is,
besides from what
I'm
I
the one that
told you,
participated the least.
yes. Well, participated,
Maybe
but you were
that's
there
why.
every year. You were there every year.
Yes, I was there every year. Yeah, I really got a lot of the social aspect, I think. But I will say the one year I did participate, I didn't go to all the lectures, and I skipped out on some of my master classes because I had not finished writing my piece yet.
Yeah, it was more stressful when
So
you were a participant, definitely.
yeah, and especially in a participant who hasn't finished their piece.
But yeah, I remember that we also got to meet some of the newcomers of the for 2011 before they came.
Oh yeah, I remember
Union
meeting Matt
Buffalo.
Sargent before he came in.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
yeah,
There
so that
were
was
a
cool,
few.
and I mean, I really think he's a really great person, and I think I really enjoy some of his music. But yeah, I remember meeting him before. I know Dan Basson came before. I think he did June in Buffalo before he was a student. I never did June in Buffalo before being a student.
So you may even get to meet some people that you're gonna study with in the future. Because like
Mm-hmm.
minds kind of gravitate towards similar um,
Yeah.
festival, right? It's like if you write in a style or write in a more avant-garde way or are more orchestral, I don't know, more
Do you
orchestral
remember?
type of festival, then you go to this type of festival or this type of festival. So it's kind of like
Did you remember Hannah Eckenmeyer? Who she was
the German
studied
girl.
at UB like as like a she was there for like a year maybe
I
year or two like
remember
on some kind of
what
research.
a bit of her, but yeah. What about her?
Yeah, so she came back. Oh, she came back maybe not that long after we're at Buffalo like that as a senior faculty member there.
Yeah. Oh, well,
Yeah.
there you go.
I remember seeing her. She's yeah. So you didn't have that.
I didn't know. Nope. I didn't know that.
Yeah, she came back. She was a junior Buffalo senior faculty once. It was that was a good. I think it was right when I graduate. Right, I think it was 2015 because I remember it was graduated. I remember. I think everybody was pretty interesting there. They weren't as big of names, but all the names were very interesting that year. And I remember David Felder kind of suggested to me that I should participate actively as a composer. But I was graduating with my doctorate, you know, I wasn't funded. It wasn't happening, but I was able.
You were on your way out.
I have my, yeah, but I was able to go to some concerts and stuff. My in-laws all are from that area, so for a while after because we would always visit them sometime in the summer, I would always just be like, why not visit them in June? And
then I get
a couple
to see
concerts.
Yeah, that
yeah.
that's cool. You at least have that connection and can go to that festival and see what's going on, what new people are thinking, like younger people.
Yeah,
about
and now it's I think is it still going to be run by Jonathan Golub, I believe.
I think so. I'm not sure, but
I mean,
uh,
and I
it's
haven't
gonna be soon.
seen firsthand, but I've actually heard very positive things through the grapevine. I've not seen anything. I wasn't able to attend his first festival, but I have heard very positive things about the festival last summer that Jonathan Golub run since David Felder has retired. So that's encouraging that hopefully it stays as a thing.
I I hope so, and I think it will because it's got a really
Mhm.
long tradition. Like it
Mm-hmm.
preceded David Felder. It was there since
Well,
Morton
he brought
Feldman.
it back though.
He brought it back,
Gordon
yeah,
Feldman started it, and then it
but
exited, and then David Felder brought it back.
it was inactive for
It was
like
the whole. It used to
2
be the
or 3
whole.
years.
Well,
It wasn't
yeah.
that
Well, he changed it
many
because it
years.
used to be the entire month of June.
Oh, okay.
Um,
I didn't know that.
it was originally the entire month of June. It was June in Buffalo, and I think he thought like, okay, June's a nice month in Buffalo for people to come to Buffalo, so let's have a festival. So he did the entire month, and I think it just became more difficult to fund a festival for that length of
Yeah,
a period.
even
So I
if
think
you
there was
were
a couple years
monitoring
that it just
November.
didn't run.
Uh-huh.
And then David Felder was like, you know what, we can really capture the same spirit, but then do this festival in a week-long festival. So that's what is now.
And let's
June of
hope
Buffalo.
it continues because yeah, because of all the positive things we've mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard positive feedback from the festival went really well, and so
And to
yeah,
put it simple, in a simple manner, it's just fun. For composers, it's just a lot of fun.
it is.
Even if
It is
you
very
are
fun.
running around, like, okay, you have a class at 9, I have this other thing. Uh, well, you're not gonna get graded. It's
But if
just,
you're no, and you're not gonna get any younger, man. Like, I there is no way I could do any of the festivals at my age now that I could, like, with the kind of vigor I could in my early 20s. Like, really, I probably at June in Buffalo, I probably slept for 3 hours, got up, and was at that 9 a.m. lecture every single day for a week. And
yeah, it was a bit
yeah,
like
that I
that.
don't think that would be happening now. But yeah, you when you're young, just
So yeah,
do what you can with
it
it because
seems,
you're never gonna feel better.
yeah, and the same goes for going abroad. For example, festivals in Europe. So I hear some people say that
Mhm.
they wanna travel when they retire in their 50s. It's like, man, uh, your energy kind of diminishes a lot. Like if you're gonna travel, if you can travel when you're younger, better do it then. Um, and the
Yes.
funding, well, if you're in an institution, in a serious institution that values the arts, which, well, I'm not gonna get into that topic, but there's funding for sure. Just apply and see what money you can get, and well, well, I think we've
Oh
run
yeah.
a lot of time. It's been 1 hour and 45 minutes.
I
Shanti,
know.
do you wanna say anything?
Yeah, participate in any conferences, festivals when you are young. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's some nice finishing statement. Well, Megan, you wanna say anything else?
No.
No, you good?
No. I
Okay.
mean, I think I'm good. Yeah. I don't. I feel really grateful, and I don't regret any of my festival experience. They've all been different, but I don't regret any of them.
Yeah, neither do I. So neither do I. And each and every one of them, they had their distinct stamp and identity. So yes, they are good in your formation as composers and individuals and all of that. And that's all I have to say. And that will be it. Like for this semester for us, this was a semester because we began kind of
Yeah.
like in February or so. And this is also a season finale and stuff like that. So it was
Yeah, so
nice.
look out. We're still
Yeah,
developing our format, and
we're gonna think
yeah.
about the next few. Well, we're gonna be absent in the next few weeks and gonna regroup and then come back and forth with new vigor and stuff like that. But that's it for now and
Mhm.
for a few weeks. So be safe, people.
Take care.
Bye.